For several days, the billionaire's fiancée had been quietly preparing a trap, planning every detail with care. On the surface, she acted calm and confident, but in secret, she worked to set up a situation that would make the mansion's maid look guilty of something she had not done. The maid was known for being honest, dedicated, and loyal, yet that did not stop the fiancé from using her as the center of her plan. Slowly, rumors began to spread, and doubts were created around the maid's name. By the time the court hearing was scheduled, the damage to her reputation already seemed difficult to undo. Many people believed the worst, and the maid found herself facing accusations she never imagined she would encounter. However, on the day of the hearing, something completely unexpected happened. The billionaire's young son, who had not been involved in any of the discussions, appeared suddenly in the courtroom. His presence surprised everyone because no one expected him to take part in the situation. What he said next had the power to change everything. Without fear, he stepped forward and revealed information that no one else had been willing to speak about. His words created a moment of shock, breaking the tension in the room and opening the possibility for the truth to come out at last. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. Clara Ara had worked for the Hamilton family for many years, always doing her best to keep everything in order. She took care of the rooms, cleaned the kitchen, prepared what was needed, and made sure the house stayed calm and organized. Her days were long, but she never complained because she felt useful and respected in that home. The person she cared for the most was Ethan, the young boy who saw her almost as a second mother. She helped him with simple tasks, listened to him when he talked about his day, and made sure he felt safe after losing his real mother so early. When Adam Hamilton, a widower for some years, remarried, Clara Ara tried to adapt to the new changes. She wanted everything to continue peacefully. But Helena, Adam's new wife, was very different from what Clara Ara had imagined. Helena liked everything exactly her way, and she always observed Clara Ara closely, as if waiting for her to make a mistake. Even so, Clara Ara tried to remain patient, hoping things would eventually get easier. She kept doing her work as she always had, following her routine, unaware that her life was about to change in the worst possible way. The situation started when a valuable piece of jewelry disappeared from the house. It happened on a normal day, one that seemed like all the others. Clara Ara followed her usual cleaning routine, organizing the rooms and preparing meals. Nothing felt different until Helena suddenly announced that the jewelry was missing. She made the announcement loudly, in a tone that already suggested blame. Helena said clearly that someone must have taken it, and she immediately turned her attention toward Clara Ara. She pointed out that Clara Ara entered every room, handled the drawers, and cleaned the places where the jewelry was usually kept. Helena insisted that only a person with access and a reason would have done something like that, and she claimed Clara Ara was the only one who fit that description. Clara Ara tried to explain she had done nothing wrong, but Helena refused to listen. The atmosphere in the house changed instantly. Adam listened to his wife, standing behind her, and even though Clara Ara hoped he would defend her, he stayed quiet. She watched him carefully, expecting him to remember all her years of loyal work, but instead he seemed convinced by Helena's firm tone and sharp accusations. Adam's reaction hurt Clara Ara deeply, because she had always trusted him to be fair, but when he accepted Helena's version without asking for more details, Clara Ara felt something break inside her. Adam did not ask whether she had seen anything unusual or if someone else had been in the house. He simply nodded along with Helena's words, as if they were the truth and nothing else mattered. Helena continued insisting that the jewelry could not have disappeared without someone purposely taking it. Clara Ara felt scared, confused, and shocked by how quickly everything had turned against her. She repeated again that she had not touched anything valuable, but she could see that her words did not matter. Helena's voice grew even stronger as she gave orders to call the police. Clara Ara stood still, trying to understand how she could be accused so easily. She thought about Ethan, who trusted her, and wondered if he would also hear these accusations. She wanted to believe someone would give her a chance to explain, but nobody did. The decision was made without her defense, and the situation spiraled into something much larger than she could control. When the police arrived, the environment became even heavier. Clara Ara felt as if the entire world had turned against her. The officers asked basic questions, but it was clear they were treating her more as a suspect than a worker who had served the family faithfully for years. Helena stayed close, watching everything with a stern expression, as if she was making sure the blame stayed on Clara. Adam stood beside Helena, silent, supporting her with his presence, even if he did not say much. Clara felt exposed as the police led her outside the house. Neighbors who happened to be nearby stopped to observe the scene. Some whispered, others simply stared. The worst part for her was knowing that these people had seen her working at the Hamilton home for so long, yet in that moment, no one seemed to doubt the accusation. Being taken away in front of everyone made her feel small and powerless. She tried to keep her head up, but the shame was overwhelming. She could not understand how such a serious accusation had been formed so quickly, and she had no idea how she would prove her innocence when nobody seemed willing to listen. After being questioned and held for some time, Clara Ara was eventually released. Even though the police had not proven anything, the suspicion remained. She went home feeling lost, unable to process what had just happened. Soon after, she received an official notice informing her that she would have to appear in court. Reading the paper made her feel sick with fear. She had never imagined she would face something so serious, especially when she had done nothing wrong. She sat alone, thinking about everything she had built over the years and how it was now falling apart without any chance for her to stop it. She worried about how she would defend herself, since she had no one close to support her. Ethan might have cared for her, but he was only a child. Adam had chosen to believe Helena. Clara Ara realized she was on her own, and that made the situation feel even heavier. She kept thinking about the moment the jewelry disappeared, hoping to recall something that could clear her name, but nothing came to mind. All she could do was wait and hope the truth eventually appeared, even though she did not know how. In the days that followed, Clara Ara felt her life changing in a painful way. People she had known for years avoided looking at her. Some crossed the street to avoid passing near her. Others acted as if they did not recognize her anymore. She felt the judgment in their silence and their distance. Her reputation, built through years of honest work, seemed to collapse in just a few hours. She tried to explain the situation to a few people, but most did not want to hear. They believed what they had seen, her being taken by police. Clara Ara felt isolated, as if she had been cut off from the life she once knew. She kept thinking about how easily her image had been damaged and how difficult it would be to repair it. Each night, she lay awake wondering why Helena had been so quick to accuse her and why Adam had believed it without hesitation. She replayed the events repeatedly, searching for anything that could help her, but all she found was fear and confusion. As the day of the trial approached, she felt more and more alone, facing a situation she never imagined she would endure. In the days after the accusation, Clara Ara finally received the official date of her trial. Seeing the date written on the paper made everything feel even more real and frightening. She knew she could not face something so serious without help, so she tried to speak with people she trusted. She visited neighbors, old acquaintances, and even community members who had once praised her work. But each time she tried to explain her situation, the response was the same. People avoided eye contact, spoke in short sentences, or said they could not get involved. Clara Ara understood that Adam and Helena were highly respected in the area, and most people feared what might happen if they stood against the couple. Even so, she kept trying, hoping someone would be brave enough to support her. When she realized no one would, she accepted she would have to face the trial on her own. She searched through her small, personal box and gathered letters from old employers who had once admired her dedication. She also collected simple documents that showed she had always been honest and responsible. Although she knew these papers might not be enough, they gave her a small sense of control in a moment when everything felt uncertain. While she focused on preparing for her defense, Clara Ara noticed that life outside her home was getting harder each day. Whenever she walked down the street, people lowered their voices or quickly changed direction. She heard fragments of conversations that made it clear rumors about her were spreading quickly. She did not have to guess where these stories came from, because she knew Helena had a strong influence over many people and liked to repeat her opinions loudly. It seemed Helena wanted the entire community to believe Clara Ara was guilty before the trial even began. The worst part was that some people did not just avoid her. They looked at her with clear distrust, as if she had done something unforgivable. Clara Ara tried to stay calm, telling herself the truth would come out eventually, but the constant judgment made her feel smaller each day. Even the police officers she had spoken to acted as if her guilt was almost certain. Their questions were cold, and their comments left her feeling powerless. Clara Ara did her best to stay focused on her documents and letters, but the weight of the situation made every step more difficult. During this difficult time, something unexpected happened that gave her a small moment of hope. One afternoon, she heard a quiet knock at her door. When she opened it, she found Ethan standing there, looking tired and worried. He had run away from the mansion without telling anyone, just to see her. As soon as she saw him, Clara Ara felt her heart tighten. She knelt to his level, asking why he had come all that way alone. Ethan explained in simple words that he did not believe the accusations against her. He said he knew she would never do something wrong. While talking, he handed her a small drawing he had made. It showed the two of them standing side by side, with simple smiles. The drawing was not perfect, but to Clara Ara, it felt like the strongest proof that someone still believed in her. She hugged him gently, thanking him for coming, and told him he needed to go back before anyone noticed he was gone. Even though the visit lasted only a short time, it filled her with strength. After he left, she looked at the drawing again and again, finding comfort in the fact that at least one person saw her as she truly was. Back at the mansion, Helena continued to push her version of the story to anyone who would listen. She seemed determined to make sure Clara Ara had no chance of defending herself. Helena spoke to neighbors, visited local businesses, and made sure everyone heard the same message, that Clara Ara had betrayed the family and stolen something valuable. But she did not stop there. She hired a well-known lawyer, someone respected and feared, to strengthen her case. Soon, rumors began appearing in local newspapers, always carrying the same tone, suggesting that the evidence against Clara Ara was obvious, even though the truth had not yet been proven. Each article made the situation worse, and Clara Ara felt trapped by the way Helena controlled public opinion. People repeated the rumors as if they were facts, and no one asked for her side of the story. Clara Ara knew Helena's influence was powerful, and she felt the impact of every new rumor. She tried not to read the newspapers, but even without reading them directly, the echoes of what was written reached her through whispers and sidelong glances. It felt as if Helena wanted to erase any chance Clara Ara had of clearing her name. Meanwhile, Adam found himself in a difficult position. He did not openly support Helena's campaign, but he also did nothing to stop it. He avoided conversations about the case and kept himself distant from anything related to the upcoming trial. When people asked him questions, he responded with short, cautious answers, trying not to upset his wife while also avoiding making clear statements. Adam seemed divided inside, caught between wanting to trust Helena's judgment and remembering the many years Clara had spent caring for his home and his son. But instead of taking action, he chose to remain silent. His silence allowed Helena's version of events to grow stronger in the community. Clara hoped he might change his mind, but she had no way of knowing what he was thinking. To her, Adam's distance felt like another loss, another sign that she was facing this crisis without support. Even though he did not speak against her directly, his lack of effort to help made the situation even more painful. Throughout all of this, Ethan continued asking questions inside the mansion. He asked Helena, he asked his father, and he even asked other adults around the house, but no one gave him clear answers. They either dismissed him or told him not to worry about things he could not understand. But Ethan refused to accept these responses. He kept saying that Clara would never do something wrong, and he asked why she was being treated so harshly if no one had seen her take anything. His questions made some adults uncomfortable, but they avoided giving him explanations. Ethan felt confused and frustrated, especially because the environment in the mansion felt tense and different from before. Even though he was young, he sensed something was wrong. He cared for Clara, and the lack of honesty around him only made him more certain that the accusations did not make sense. For Clara, knowing that Ethan still believed in her gave her the strength to continue preparing for the trial, even when everything else made her feel alone. Clara spent the days before the trial trying to stay calm, even though she felt pressure growing around her. She knew she needed something solid to defend herself, so she tried to think carefully about everything that had happened on the day the jewelry disappeared. While going over every detail in her mind, she remembered that there were cameras installed near the room where the missing jewelry had been kept. This gave her a small moment of hope because she thought the cameras might show who had been near the room at the right time. She went to check this possibility, hoping it would help her. But when she finally learned the truth, her hope disappeared. The main camera, the one that could have shown the most important moment, had been turned off exactly when the jewelry went missing. Hearing this made her feel frustrated and confused. She knew she had not touched the jewelry, and she believed the cameras could prove that. But now the only footage that mattered simply did not exist. It felt like one more obstacle added to all the others she had already been facing. Even so, she told herself she could not stop trying, because giving up would only make things worse. At the same time, the public defender assigned to her case did not seem very committed. Every time she spoke with him, he sounded tired and distracted. His answers were short, as if her situation was nothing special. Clara tried to explain every detail she remembered, hoping he would show some interest, but he never asked many questions. It worried her that he did not seem willing to investigate or challenge the accusations. She knew Helena had the resources to push the case forward quickly, and she saw how efficiently Helena was doing that. Helena spoke to people in the community, repeated her version of the story often, and made comments that suggested Clara had financial problems. Clara felt helpless hearing about these rumors because she knew they were not true, but she had no way to stop them. Helena's influence made everything move faster, and each day Clara felt the situation slipping more out of her control. She hoped the defender would fight for her, but his lack of enthusiasm made her fear she would be facing the courtroom without real support. Inside the mansion, changes were happening as well. Some employees who had worked there for years suddenly decided to leave their jobs. They gave no clear reasons and avoided long conversations. Clara heard about this through whispers, but the little information she received only made her feel uneasy. She wondered if these employees knew something important or if they left because the atmosphere in the mansion had changed so much. The workers who remained became quieter, avoiding any comments or questions about the missing jewelry. Whenever Clara tried to ask anyone for details that might help her, they responded with short phrases or said they needed to return to their tasks. It felt as if everyone was afraid of being involved. Meanwhile, Ethan carried memories from the night when he had woken up and seen something, but he had been firmly discouraged by Helena from talking about it. He tried to ask questions, but Helena reminded him that he should stay out of adult matters. This made him anxious and unsure about what he was allowed to say. His silence worried Clara because she sensed he might know something important, but was being prevented from sharing it. With the trial date approaching quickly, Clara found herself increasingly exhausted. The constant rumors, the lack of support, and the fear of the unknown left her feeling drained. Still, she refused to give up. Each morning she forced herself to stay focused on preparing whatever she could. She reviewed the letters from former employers, organized the few documents she had, and tried to hold on to the memory of Ethan bringing her that drawing. Even when she felt overwhelmed, she reminded herself that she needed to stay strong through the final steps of the process. She tried to rest, but sleep became difficult. Her thoughts kept returning to the missing camera footage, the cold attitude of the public defender, and Helena's constant attempts to control the story. Even though she felt tired in every way, she held on to the small bit of determination she still had. She told herself that no matter how unfair everything felt, she needed to walk into the courtroom prepared. When the day of the hearing finally arrived, Clara prepared herself early. She dressed in her old work uniform, the same clothes she had worn for years in the Hamilton mansion. She chose to wear it because it represented the life she had lived with honesty and dedication. As she walked toward the building where the hearing would take place, she felt every stare directed at her. People in the hallway stopped talking as she passed, and some looked at her with clear judgment. She tried not to react, but it was impossible not to feel the weight of those looks. Entering the courtroom felt like stepping into a space where everyone had already formed an opinion about her. She sat quietly, trying to keep her breathing steady. The prosecutor hired by Helena stood confidently, ready to present the case. He described her as someone who had taken advantage of the trust the Hamilton family had given her. His words were strong, sharp, and meant to leave a clear impression on everyone listening. Clara sat still, knowing she had no choice but to endure what was being said. As the arguments began, Clara listened carefully, even when the statements felt painful. The prosecutor emphasized her access to the house and repeated the rumors Helena had spread. He pointed to her years of work as an opportunity rather than proof of her honesty. Clara wanted to speak out, to defend herself loudly, but she had to wait for her turn. Her public defender responded with weak statements that lacked conviction. His voice did not match the strength of the accusations being made. Clara felt the imbalance in the room, as if the entire situation was tilted against her from the start. Still, she forced herself to remain calm and to trust that telling the truth was the only thing she could do. She held her hands together tightly, feeling the familiar fabric of her uniform beneath her fingers. She reminded herself of the years she had spent caring for Ethan and working hard in the Hamilton home. Even in the face of judgment and doubt, she kept her focus on the hope that the truth would eventually rise above everything else. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tense from the moment Clara stepped inside. Once the hearing began, the prosecutor started speaking with confidence, describing Clara as someone who had taken advantage of her position in the Hamilton household. He repeated more than once that she was the only person who had full access to the area where the missing jewelry had been kept. He used this point as the foundation of his entire argument, saying it proved she was the most likely person to have taken it. Clara listened quietly, feeling each accusation like a heavy weight. The prosecutor spoke as if everything he claimed was already proven truth, and the people in the room seemed to follow his tone without questioning. Witnesses connected to the Hamilton family were then called forward. Each one talked in a way that supported the prosecutor's version. Their statements were short, but they all suggested that Clara had the opportunity and the motive to commit the theft. Clara sat still as these words filled the courtroom, wishing there was someone who would speak in her favor. But she already knew that most people were too afraid to challenge Helena or Adam. She simply waited for her chance to speak, even though she feared her voice would not be enough. As the statements continued, Clara looked toward Adam, hoping to find some sign of support. But Adam remained silent next to Helena, avoiding eye contact with her completely. His posture was stiff, and his expressions stayed controlled, revealing nothing. It hurt Clara to see him turn away from her after all the years she had worked in his home, caring for his son and keeping the house in order. Helena, on the other hand, followed every moment with complete confidence. She watched the prosecutor closely, nodding slightly whenever he made a point that supported her accusations. From time to time, she leaned toward him, whispering something quietly, as if she wanted to make sure every detail of the case went exactly as she planned. Clara noticed how calm Helena seemed, as if she had already decided the outcome long before the hearing started. The contrast between Helena's confidence and her own uncertainty made the situation feel even more overwhelming. She wondered if anyone else in the room noticed how much influence Helena had over the entire process. In the back of the courtroom, Ethan sat with his babysitter. His small legs dangled from the bench, and he watched the scene with a mix of confusion and sadness. He did not understand all the legal terms or the seriousness of every statement, but he could tell that Clara was being treated harshly. He recognized the tone used when people talked about her, and he could see the cold expressions on their faces. For him, everything felt wrong. He remembered the kind way she had always taken care of him, and he could not understand why so many adults insisted she had done something bad. Even though no one asked him what he thought, Ethan sensed that what was happening was unfair. His babysitter tried to distract him from time to time, but he kept his eyes fixed on Clara, hoping she would look back at him. Knowing he was there gave her a small feeling of strength, even from a distance. She wished he did not have to witness such a moment, but she was grateful that at least one person in the room truly believed in her. The media had also become a strong presence in the case. Reporters sat in designated areas, taking notes and whispering among themselves. Some had cameras ready for when they were allowed to take photos. Outside the courthouse, headlines had already appeared in newspapers and on local broadcasts. These headlines repeated the same ideas, that the evidence pointed toward Clara, that the Hamilton family had been betrayed, and that the community demanded justice. Clara knew these stories were shaping public opinion even before the trial had a chance to reach a fair conclusion. She felt helpless, knowing that people were reading simplified versions of the situation that made her seem guilty. Each article added to the pressure surrounding the hearing. Inside the courtroom, she could feel the eyes of several reporters watching her reactions closely. She tried to keep a neutral expression, even though inside she felt worried about how the media would describe her next. Their presence made the trial seem even larger and more intimidating, as if every mistake she made would be discussed publicly. When Clara was finally called to testify, she stood up slowly and walked toward the front of the courtroom. Her legs felt heavy, but she kept her steps steady. Once she reached the designated spot, she took a quiet breath before speaking. She explained her daily routine in the Hamilton house, describing the tasks she performed and the areas she worked in. She made sure to be clear and honest, speaking simply so that everyone could understand. She said plainly that she had never touched the missing jewelry and had no reason to do so. Her voice remained calm, even though her heart beat fast with worry. She hoped people would hear the sincerity in her words. But as she looked around the room, she saw that many people were not reacting with interest or curiosity. Instead, most faces showed the same cold expression they had shown from the beginning. It was as if they had already decided their opinion before she even opened her mouth. The indifference in the room was hard to ignore. Clara Ara could see it in the way people avoided her eyes and in the slight shakes of their heads as she spoke. The version supported by Helena seemed to have convinced them long before her testimony. Even though she told the truth clearly, many of the people present did not seem willing to consider her side. She finished her statement knowing that she had done everything she could with the limited support she had. As she stepped back to her seat, she felt the weight of the entire courtroom pressing down on her. She knew she could not control what others chose to believe, but she held on to the hope that the truth still mattered. Deep inside, she reminded herself that she had remained honest from the beginning, even when the world around her treated her as if she were guilty. Some tensions began to appear behind the scenes, even though no one spoke about them openly. Clara Ara noticed that several employees who might have helped her were acting nervous. When she tried to ask simple questions, they quickly ended the conversation or said they could not get involved. Some even admitted in low voices that they were afraid. Their fear made it clear that something was wrong, but no one dared to explain what it was. One day, a housemaid quietly told Clara Ara that she had seen Helena near the jewelry room on the night the item disappeared. For a brief moment, this information gave Clara Ara hope, but the maid quickly changed her story. She looked frightened and said she must have been mistaken. Her sudden shift made Clara Ara believe the maid had been pressured or warned, but she could not prove it. These inconsistencies filled Clara Ara with frustration. She knew she was not the one who had taken the jewelry, yet the people who might help her seemed trapped by fear. As these moments repeated, Clara Ara realized she had fewer allies than she had thought. Even so, she kept listening carefully for anything that might help her understand what had really happened that night. At the same time, Ethan began to remember details from the night of the disappearance. He recalled waking up and seeing someone standing in the hallway, though he could not explain who it was. He tried to talk to Adam about what he had seen, hoping his father would take his words seriously, but Adam did not give him much attention. He responded briefly and did not ask any questions, as if he thought Ethan's memory was not important. Ethan felt frustrated and confused by this reaction. He sensed that something about the situation was being ignored, but he could not understand why. Soon, Helena noticed the boy's growing curiosity. She saw that he was thinking too much about the night of the disappearance, and she did not want him repeating his story to other people. To distract him, she began giving him gifts and spending more time showing him things she knew he liked. When that did not fully calm him, she firmly warned him not to talk anymore about what he believed he had seen. Ethan felt pressured, and even though he still believed Clara Ara was innocent, he became quiet about the subject. His silence added another layer of worry for Clara Ara, who sensed he might know something important. While all of this was happening, Clara Ara continued facing the trial with almost no support. She felt the pressure of the courtroom, the weight of the accusations, and the cold way most people treated her. So when someone knocked on her door one afternoon, she was not expecting anything positive. To her surprise, it was Emily, a young lawyer Clara Ara had never met before. Emily explained that she had been following the case through the news and did not believe the official version of events. She said the story seemed full of gaps and that Clara Ara's behavior did not match what the accusations described. Clara Ara listened carefully, unsure at first if she could trust someone new. But Emily spoke with calm confidence, showing no hesitation in her belief that Clara Ara might be innocent. It was the first time in a long while that someone had approached her, not with suspicion, but with genuine concern. Even though Clara Ara was tired and emotionally overwhelmed, she felt a small spark of hope at the idea that someone finally wanted to help her. Emily offered to take over the defense, explaining that Clara Ara's public defender was not giving the case the attention it needed. At first, Clara Ara worried about whether it was possible to change lawyers so late in the process, but Emily assured her that it was still allowed, and she promised to move quickly. After receiving Clara Ara's approval, Emily began reviewing every document she could get access to. She went through the police reports, the statements, and the available records from the mansion. As she worked, she noticed several inconsistencies, details that did not match the timeline or explanations that lacked proper support. These errors showed that the original investigation had not been as thorough as it should have been. Emily pointed out these issues to Clara Ara, explaining them clearly and making sure Clara Ara understood each part. For the first time since the accusations began, Clara Ara felt a sense of real direction. Emily's determination made her believe that maybe she still had a chance to prove the truth. Once Emily understood the weaknesses in the case, she decided to start a parallel investigation. She explained to Clara Ara that the official investigation seemed too influenced by the Hamilton family and that many key points had been ignored. Emily wanted to reconstruct the events of the night of the disappearance step by step, as clearly as possible. She made a list of everyone who had been near the jewelry room, the times people were awake, and the areas where each person moved. She also tried to track down any staff members who might be willing to speak privately. Even though many were afraid, Emily believed that someone might eventually share something helpful if approached carefully. Clara Ara watched her work with dedication, feeling more hopeful than she had in weeks. She still felt exhausted from everything she had endured, but the idea that someone was finally looking for the truth gave her strength. She followed Emily's explanations and answered every question honestly, hoping these efforts would reveal what really happened that night. As the investigation progressed, Emily also reviewed the gaps in the household records. She checked schedules, staff logs, and even the notes related to security cameras. She noticed the same suspicious detail that Clara Ara had discovered earlier. The main camera near the jewelry room had been turned off exactly at the wrong moment. Emily wrote this down as an important point, explaining that such a coincidence needed to be questioned. She also planned to revisit the statements of the employees who had left their jobs without explanation, because she believed they might know more than they admitted. Clara Ara was impressed by how carefully Emily examined everything. Meanwhile, she continued facing the strain of the trial, knowing that every day brought her closer to a verdict. But now, with Emily by her side, she no longer felt completely alone. She sensed that someone was finally willing to uncover the truth, even if the process was slow and difficult. Holding on to this hope helped her stay strong, even in the middle of fear and uncertainty that still surrounded her. Emily spent long hours studying every report she could access, reading each line slowly and comparing the information with the timeline that had been used in court. As she went through the official documents, she noticed that some of the recorded times did not match the statements given by certain people. There were moments that overlapped, and other moments in which the presence of some individuals inside the mansion had been vaguely described. These inconsistencies suggested that the investigation had not been handled carefully. Emily tried to contact the people who had been present at the mansion during the days surrounding the disappearance. She sent messages, made calls, and even tried to schedule meetings, but most of the employees refused to speak. Some said they did not want to be involved, while others simply never responded. Their silence only made Emily more certain that something important was being hidden. She decided that the best way to move forward was to visit the mansion herself and examine the environment. She wanted to understand the structure of the halls, the distance between the rooms, and how someone could have moved around unnoticed. Clara Ara agreed with her idea, hoping this visit would help uncover something useful. While Emily worked on her investigation, another conflict developed inside the mansion. Ethan began to feel uneasy again, as he tried to remember the night when the jewelry had disappeared. He approached Helena with simple questions, trying to understand why she had been so strict about the subject. He talked about waking up that night and seeing someone in the hallway, but instead of listening, Helena responded with cold warnings. She told him not to repeat those memories to anyone and reminded him that he should stay quiet about the events of that night. Her tone made it clear that she wanted to silence him without making a scene. Ethan felt growing pressure. He did not understand why his questions caused such a strong reaction, but he sensed that talking about what he remembered was dangerous. Even so, he continued feeling that something was wrong, especially because the adults around him were acting in ways that did not make sense. His confusion increased each time Helena tried to distract him or threaten him subtly. Though he was young, he could tell that the truth was being avoided. Adam, who had remained distant throughout most of the conflict, was also affected by the growing attention the case was receiving. Public pressure increased as the media continued to talk about the trial, and people expected him to show a stance stronger than silence. Feeling overwhelmed, he decided to return to old recordings stored in the mansion's system. He was not looking for anything in particular, but he hoped reviewing the past might help him understand the present situation. During this process, he found a video he had forgotten about. Clara Ara comforting Ethan after the death of his mother. In the video, she sat beside the boy, holding him as he cried, speaking to him with calm and patience. Adam watched the scene carefully, and his expression changed as he remembered how much Clara Ara had cared for his son and how kindly she had always acted. Seeing this moment from the past made him feel guilty because he realized how quickly he had accepted Helena's accusations without questioning whether they made sense. The memory left him shaken, and he remained staring at the screen long after the video ended. Meanwhile, Emily continued her investigation with determination. She looked for people who might have seen anything unusual after the disappearance. Eventually, she found someone willing to talk. This person explained, in a hesitant voice, that they had seen Helena wearing the missing jewelry at an event a few days after it had supposedly been stolen. The statement was surprising and important, so Emily asked for any kind of proof. The person mentioned that a photo had been shared online showing Helena at the event, and that the jewelry was clearly visible. Emily immediately searched for the image and managed to locate it, but when she tried to open it again later, the photo had already been removed. It was no longer available on the page where it had been posted. The sudden disappearance of the image suggested that someone had taken action to hide it. Emily took this as a sign that she was getting closer to the truth. Even though she could not retrieve the photo in time, the confirmation that it existed was valuable. Emily shared this new information with Clara Ara, explaining that the disappearance of the photo was suspicious. They both understood that the removal could indicate interference from someone with influence or resources. Clara Ara felt a mix of hope and anxiety. On one hand, the idea that Helena had been seen wearing the jewelry supported her innocence. On the other hand, the fact that the evidence had been erased so quickly reminded her how powerful Helena's influence was. Still, Clara Ara was grateful that Emily continued to find details the original investigation had ignored. She believed that these discoveries could help shift the direction of the case. Emily promised to keep searching for more witnesses or copies of the missing photo, convinced that someone else might have saved it or shared it privately. As the investigation advanced, Emily prepared a clearer picture of what might have happened on the night of the disappearance. She continued mapping the inconsistencies in the testimonies and comparing them with the timing of events inside the mansion. Even without the missing photo, the information she discovered showed patterns that suggested the truth had been distorted. She encouraged Clara Ara to stay strong and reminded her that the trial was not over yet. Clara Ara, though still worried, felt more supported than before. She knew she still faced many challenges, but she also felt that Emily's determination might finally bring clarity to the situation. Even with the fear and pressure growing, she held on to the hope that the truth would eventually appear, no matter how hard some people tried to hide it. Emily explained to Clara Ara everything she had discovered so far, including the statement from the person who claimed to have seen Helena wearing the missing jewelry in public. Clara Ara listened carefully, feeling both hopeful and anxious. She knew the information was important, but she also knew that Helena had enough influence to make evidence disappear. Even so, Emily kept moving forward, continuing to investigate the irregularities in the official records. She compared times, checked statements, and looked for gaps that could reveal what had really happened. While Emily worked, tension inside the Hamilton mansion grew stronger each day. Employees walked around nervously, speaking in low voices and avoiding long conversations. Many feared being questioned or somehow involved. Helena noticed this tension and responded by tightening her control over everyone. She watched the staff closely, demanded constant updates, and made sure people followed her instructions exactly. Her behavior created an even more uncomfortable atmosphere. Meanwhile, Ethan felt confused. He wanted to help Clara Ara because he believed she was innocent, but he was also scared of going against Helena, who had warned him not to talk about what he remembered. This left him caught between fear and the strong desire to tell the truth. Emily continued reviewing the documents, now focusing on the police reports. As she read through them, she realized that the report about the camera that had been turned off was extremely superficial. It offered no explanation, no detailed inspection, and no technical analysis. It simply stated that the camera was not recording at the moment, as if that were normal. Emily understood that this was a major flaw in the investigation. She knew that a camera shutting off at the exact time of the disappearance should have been treated as a serious issue. This discovery made her even more determined to dig deeper. She expanded her search, looking for any piece of information that could clarify what happened. She spoke to whoever she could, searched for overlooked details, and rebuilt the timeline again. She wanted to make sure nothing was missed. Clara Ara felt grateful for all the effort Emily was putting into the case. For the first time, someone was actively trying to expose the truth instead of blindly believing the accusations. Although the situation was still difficult, Clara Ara felt stronger, knowing Emily was on her side. Days later, a new session was scheduled at the courthouse. The room was full, just like before. Reporters sat in their usual places, and people whispered among themselves as if expecting something dramatic to happen. Clara entered the room quietly, trying to stay calm even though she felt the pressure of all the eyes watching her. Eleanor sat confidently beside Adam, maintaining her usual composed expression. The judge reviewed the documents, the lawyers prepared their notes, and the session moved forward as expected. While this happened, Ethan sat with his babysitter in the back of the courtroom. He had been told, once again, to stay silent and not cause problems, but the more he listened, the more uncomfortable he felt. He knew that what people were saying about Clara was wrong. He remembered the night when he woke up and saw Helena hiding something inside a box in the office. His memory was clear, and keeping it inside made him feel worse with each passing minute. He looked at Clara Ara from afar, seeing how tense and tired she appeared, and something inside him finally pushed him to act. In a sudden moment, Ethan pulled away from his babysitter and ran down the aisle toward Clara Ara. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look. The babysitter tried to reach him, but he was too fast. He stood beside Clara Ara, holding onto her arm, and looked up at the judge. His voice was shaky, but loud enough for everyone to hear. He said he had seen Helena hiding a shiny object inside a box in the office on the night the jewelry disappeared. His words echoed through the courtroom, surprising everyone, especially because the information came directly from a child who had been inside the house when everything happened. The judge immediately stopped the session. He asked Ethan to repeat what he had said, making sure he understood the seriousness of the statement. Ethan repeated it again, still holding on to Clara. His honesty and fear were clear, leaving no doubt that he was telling the truth. The entire room shifted from certainty to confusion in just a few seconds. The judge said the trial could not continue until this new testimony was investigated. He ordered an immediate pause to review Ethan's statement and the events he described. For the first time, the direction of the case changed sharply. Helena, who had remained calm throughout the entire ordeal, now showed visible signs of nervousness. Her hands tightened, her breathing quickened, and she avoided looking at anyone. She tried to maintain control, but her usual confidence was clearly shaken. People inside the courtroom noticed her reaction, whispering among themselves. Adam looked shocked, unable to ignore the situation anymore. Clara stood in silence, overwhelmed by what had just happened. She gently placed her hand over Ethan's, grateful for his courage. The judge's decision gave her the first real chance to prove her innocence. The atmosphere in the room changed completely, and for the first time, it felt like the truth finally had a chance to be heard. As people left the courtroom, conversations filled the hallways. Reporters rushed to share the news, filling the air with questions and speculation. Emily stayed close to Clara, explaining what would likely happen next. She said the court would now investigate Ethan's testimony, review the office, and examine the box he mentioned. This could lead to new evidence, or even uncover details that had been hidden before. Clara listened carefully, feeling a mixture of relief and fear. She knew the situation was not over, but she finally saw a light in the darkness. Ethan stood beside her, holding her hand tightly, no longer afraid. Helena remained in the courtroom longer than anyone else, struggling to regain her composure. Her nervousness was clear to everyone, and it marked a turning point in the case. For the first time, Clara felt that justice might actually be possible. Adam returned to the mansion, feeling overwhelmed after the sudden suspension of the trial. The judge's decision, based on Ethan's testimony, had shaken everything he thought he knew. As soon as he entered the house, he went straight to the office, where Helena was pacing nervously. He did not try to soften his tone or hide his frustration. He demanded that she explain why Ethan had said he saw her hiding a shiny object in a box on the night the jewelry disappeared. Helena tried at first to deflect the questions, insisting that Ethan must have imagined it or been confused. But Adam refused to accept vague answers this time. He pressed her again and again, repeating Ethan's words until she finally stopped denying everything. After a long moment of silence, she admitted that she had felt threatened by the way Clara interacted with Ethan and even with Adam himself. She confessed that she'd allowed her jealousy and insecurity to grow, and although she did not give a clear explanation for the jewelry, she admitted that she had let suspicion fall on Clara without making any effort to stop the situation from escalating. Adam listened in disbelief, realizing how much damage had been caused by silence and fear. After the tense confrontation, Helena left the office, and Adam remained alone with his thoughts. He felt a mix of guilt, anger, and confusion. For years, he had trusted Clara with the most important parts of his home, and yet he had not defended her when she needed him most. Determined to understand the full truth, he began searching the office thoroughly. He checked drawers, shelves, and files, looking for anything that might confirm or deny what Ethan had said. While inspecting the room, he noticed a panel on the wall that did not match the rest of the design. Curious, he pressed it lightly and discovered that it opened to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside, he found a small safe. His heart raced as he opened it, and when he looked inside, he froze. The missing jewelry was sitting clearly in front of him, along with other objects he did not recognize, but which seemed suspicious. In that moment, everything fell into place. He realized that Clara had been falsely accused and that the truth had been hidden inside his own house. The weight of his mistake felt heavier than ever as he closed the safe and prepared to take action. The next morning, Adam woke early, carrying the safe with him as he headed to the police station. The officer at the front desk looked surprised when Adam explained why he was there. He handed over the safe and remained while they opened it again for official inspection. When the jewelry was confirmed to be the missing item from the case, the station became filled with movement and urgency. Officers documented everything, took Adam's statement, and prepared reports to send to the court. The news spread quickly within the community. People who had been certain of Clara's guilt now whispered to one another in embarrassment. Headlines changed rapidly, and the same media that had once judged Clara harshly now reported the discovery with urgency. The story of the hidden safe and Adam's confession reached the courthouse before the next hearing even began. Public opinion shifted almost immediately, and many who had avoided Clara or treated her poorly now questioned their own behavior. For the first time since the beginning of the investigation, the community began to understand the truth. Back inside the courtroom, Emily arrived with confidence, holding the official documents that confirmed Adam had delivered the safe to the police. Clara sat beside her, nervous but hopeful. The room filled quickly, and when the session started, Emily presented the evidence clearly. She explained where the safe had been found, what it contained, and how it changed everything about the case. Adam then stepped forward to give his testimony. He admitted openly that he had remained silent during the accusations and that he had allowed Helena's fears and influence to guide his judgment. He confessed that he had not defended Clara, even though she had taken care of his home and his son with complete loyalty. His words echoed throughout the room, leaving many people silent and ashamed. Emily emphasized that Clara had been wrongly accused and that the true events were finally becoming clear. Clara listened with a mix of relief and sadness, knowing how close she had come to losing everything. The judge reviewed the new information carefully, and the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted dramatically. After listening to both Emily and Adam, the judge stated firmly that Clara should never have been accused. He explained that the case had been handled with negligence and influenced by assumptions rather than evidence. He spoke about the importance of fairness and acknowledged the harm that had been done to Clara's reputation and life. His words brought a sense of justice that had been missing from the entire process. He then announced that the accusations against her were officially dismissed. The tension in the room dissolved instantly, replaced by a mix of relief, regret, and quiet emotion. Clara felt her eyes fill with tears as she realized the nightmare was finally coming to an end. Emily placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, proud of everything they had achieved together. As soon as the judge finished speaking, Ethan broke free from his babysitter once again and rushed toward Clara. This time, no one tried to stop him. He ran straight into her arms, hugging her tightly. The courtroom fell silent as people watched the emotional scene. Many were moved, especially because Ethan's courage had played a crucial role in revealing the truth. Clara hugged him back, feeling grateful for the boy who had never doubted her. Some people in the room wiped their eyes, while others lowered their heads, ashamed of having believed the worst. Adam watched them from a distance, knowing he still needed to make things right. But for that moment, what mattered most was that Clara was finally free from the accusation that had nearly destroyed her life. The truth had surfaced, and she stood surrounded by people who finally understood her innocence. The discovery of the safe changed everything in a matter of hours. As soon as the police confirmed that the missing jewelry had been found in Helena's possession, the media shifted its focus. News outlets that had once portrayed Clara as the main suspect now redirected their attention toward Helena. Headlines described her as the central figure behind the false accusation, and reporters questioned her actions and motives. The public, who had been quick to judge Clara Ara before, now expressed shock and disbelief at Helena's involvement. Adam, feeling deep remorse for having trusted Helena without questioning her behavior, decided to speak publicly. In a brief but emotional statement, he apologized for his failure to verify the facts and for allowing the situation to escalate the way it had. He admitted openly that he had believed his wife without considering the possibility that she was wrong. Clara Ara listened to his words from home, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. She did not seek revenge or attention. She only wanted her dignity restored after everything she had been forced to endure. Her name was finally being cleared, but she still carried the emotional weight of the accusations. A few days later, the judge scheduled a new hearing, this time focused on Helena's actions. The courtroom was once again filled with people eager to witness the next part of the case. Helena arrived visibly tense, though she tried to maintain an appearance of control. When given the chance to speak, she insisted that the situation had been misunderstood. She claimed that people were confused and that the events had been interpreted incorrectly. But her arguments were weak compared to the evidence gathered against her. Emily, prepared and confident, stepped forward with new information. She presented statements from former employees who had left the mansion months earlier. Their testimonies described a pattern of intimidation, manipulation, and baseless accusations made by Helena long before the jewelry incident. These witnesses explained how they had felt pressured and fearful while working under her supervision. Their accounts supported the idea that Helena had a history of creating problems and blaming others. The judge listened carefully, noting the consistency among the statements. It became clear that Helena's behavior had been overlooked for too long. The prosecutor, seeing how the evidence had grown, formally requested the opening of a criminal case against Helena. He emphasized that her actions had caused serious harm to Clara Ara and had interfered with a legal investigation. He explained that accusing someone falsely and manipulating the situation carried significant consequences. Helena's reaction was one of shock and disbelief. She argued again that people were exaggerating and that she had never intended for the situation to escalate. But her words did not convince the judge or anyone else present. Clara Ara, who sat quietly with Emily beside her, felt a sense of closure as she watched the proceedings unfold. She did not feel satisfaction in seeing Helena face consequences, but she felt relieved that the truth was finally being treated with the seriousness it deserved. After months of fear and isolation, she could finally see justice being carried out in a fair manner. Her voice had been ignored at first, but now the truth was impossible to deny. When the judge announced that Clara Ara was officially declared innocent, the room responded with a wave of emotion. Some people clapped softly, others nodded in approval, and a few looked ashamed for having believed the rumors. Clara Ara stood slowly, overwhelmed by the moment. Emily gave her a reassuring smile, proud of how strong she had remained throughout the ordeal. As Clara Ara left the courthouse, she was surprised to find a crowd waiting outside. People who had once avoided her or judged her harshly now approached her with kind words. They apologized, offered support, and acknowledged that they had been wrong. Some brought small flowers, while others simply expressed relief that justice had been served. Clara Ara listened politely, grateful for the change in attitude, but still processing everything that had happened. She appreciated the support, but she knew it would take time to rebuild her confidence and trust in others. Even so, she walked away from the courthouse with her head held higher than it had been in months. In the days that followed, Clara Ara tried to adjust to her new reality. She received several job offers from people who admired her perseverance and wanted to help her rebuild her life, but she turned them all down for the moment. After so many months of stress, accusations, and fear, she felt emotionally drained. She realized she needed time to rest, recover, and think clearly about what she wanted for her future. She spent her days quietly, organizing her home, taking slow walks, and enjoying the simple routines she had missed while dealing with the trial. The silence felt strange at first, but also comforting. For the first time in a long time, she had control over her own schedule and her own decisions. Emily visited her often to check on her, and Ethan sent her small drawings as a way of staying close. Clara Ara kept these gestures close to her heart, appreciating every sign of kindness. As she settled into this period of rest, Clara Ara began to feel stronger each day. Although she still carried memories of how she had been treated, she also carried the relief of knowing she had been cleared of all accusations. She focused on rebuilding her sense of peace before making any new commitments. Her life had been completely overturned, but now she had the chance to restart at her own pace. Her dignity had been restored, and she no longer had to fear the whispers or stares of the community. The months of pain had finally led to justice, and while she did not know exactly what her next steps would be, she knew one thing for certain: she would move forward on her own terms. In the final hearing, the courtroom was filled with a sense of closure that had been missing throughout the long and painful process. Helena stood before the judge, no longer able to rely on influence or manipulation. The evidence presented against her was clear, and the testimonies from former employees, along with the discovery of the hidden safe, left no room for doubt. After reviewing all the information, the judge declared Helena guilty of false accusation, harassment, and hiding valuable belongings. The decision carried serious consequences. Helena received a sentence of house arrest, meaning she would no longer move freely or maintain control over the household. In addition, she lost all administrative rights over the family's assets. The ruling marked the end of her authority and the beginning of accountability. Clara Ara watched the decision quietly, feeling a mixture of relief and disbelief. She had been through months of fear, humiliation, and uncertainty, but now justice had finally been served. For the first time since the accusations began, she felt the weight of the situation begin to lift from her shoulders. With Helena's rights removed, Adam stepped into the role of managing the family's businesses and responsibilities. He approached his new position with a strong desire to correct the mistakes of the past. In a public announcement, he explained that the new direction of the business would be centered on transparency and respect, making sure that no one within the organization would face unfair treatment again. His words reflected a deeper change in his understanding of what had happened. He knew that his trust in Helena had hurt innocent people, and that he had allowed fear and confusion to influence his choices. Taking leadership was his way of rebuilding what had been damaged. Among the first decisions he made was reaching out to Clara Ara with an unexpected offer. He invited her to lead a foundation focused on supporting women who had been falsely accused, giving her a chance to turn her painful experience into something meaningful and transformative. When he presented the idea, he emphasized that he wanted the foundation to be a place of fairness, safety, and opportunity, qualities Clara Ara had been denied during her own struggle. Clara Ara listened to Adam's proposal with cautious emotion. It was a serious responsibility, and she knew it would require strength and dedication. Still, the purpose of the foundation touched her deeply. She had lived through the pain of being wrongly accused, and she understood how important it could be for others to have support, guidance, and a voice. After taking a few days to think carefully, she accepted the role. The decision felt like a new beginning, a chance to rebuild her life with purpose while helping others avoid the suffering she had endured. Once she stepped into her new position, she felt empowered by the independence and respect she was offered. The foundation soon gained structure, and she began organizing programs, meeting women with difficult stories, and developing projects aimed at giving them stability and a fresh start. Her experience gave her empathy, and people trusted her because she spoke from real understanding. The work was challenging, but she found it meaningful in a way she had long hoped for. During this time, her relationship with Ethan remained strong. The boy continued to divide his days between staying with his father and visiting the foundation with Clara. He seemed happier and more at ease now that the truth had been revealed and the tension inside the mansion had disappeared. Ethan enjoyed spending time helping with small tasks at the foundation, sometimes drawing pictures for the women or organizing simple items. Clara welcomed his presence, always glad to see him smiling after months of confusion and fear. Adam made sure Ethan felt safe and supported, explaining things in ways he could understand. The events of the past had changed all of them, but in Ethan's case, they had also taught him about courage, honesty, and the importance of speaking up. His bond with Clara was stronger than ever, and he felt proud to see her helping others the way she had always helped him. Emily also continued to play an important role in the new phase of their lives. Her work during the investigation brought her recognition from legal groups and social organizations who admired her dedication and skill. She began collaborating with the foundation as a legal advisor, helping women navigate their cases, understand their rights, and receive proper representation. Her involvement made the foundation stronger, adding a layer of protection and expertise that many women desperately needed. Emily and Clara formed a solid partnership built on mutual trust and respect. They often spent long hours planning strategies, reviewing documents, and discussing ways to expand the foundation's reach. Their teamwork became one of the driving forces behind its success. With Emily's legal knowledge and Clara's leadership, the foundation quickly gained visibility and support from the community, allowing them to assist more women each month. As the months passed, Clara settled into her new routine with a steady sense of peace. She managed her work with confidence, knowing that she had full autonomy and that her decisions were respected. Her life no longer revolved around fear or uncertainty. Instead, she focused on helping others, rebuilding her own future, and restoring the dignity that had once been taken from her. She kept her home simple and quiet, enjoying moments of rest she had once feared she might never feel again. Although the memory of her past struggles remained, it no longer defined her. She had turned her pain into purpose and her fear into strength. With time, she regained her sense of balance and looked toward the future with calm determination, grateful for the second chance she had earned through resilience and truth. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.